Welcome to the Body, Mind, and Soul podcast. Every Tuesday, we talk about everything to do with personal improvement and self-growth. My name is Yermaya Dharani, and I consider myself a serious student of personal achievement. I'm hoping to create a community of like-minded people who can help each other reach their potential. So let's get to it. People, thank you so much for joining in. You know what? I'm really excited about today's podcast. Just first of all, I want to say that I'm really enjoying recording these podcasts because it's an opportunity for me to basically review and reinforce everything that I've learned in the past. The best way to learn something is to basically explain it to somebody else, so I'm really enjoying doing this. And I hope that, those of you out there that are listening to this podcast are actually getting something out of it as well. Today I'm very excited about the podcast that we're going to be recording. And the reason why is because it's something that I'm very, very passionate about. The structure of this podcast, as it's called the Body, Mind, Soul Project. And the way that I'm going to structure it is I'm going to alternate between different categories. So today we're going to talk about the body. We're going to talk about a topic to do with health, fitness, energy, vitality. The next episode, we're going to talk about something to do with the mind, education, goal setting, success, these kind of things, personal finance even. And then after that, we're going to alternate once again and talk about the soul, meditation, these kind of things, how to connect with a higher power. So without further ado, I want to basically get into it. And I want to talk about what I consider to be one of the most important health tips out there in existence right now. It's something that I've been practicing for many, many years. And I want to bring back an ancient secret of health. So if I told you that there was a magic pill out there that had no side effects, and that if you were to take it, it would result in you losing weight and staying slim. It would give you more mental clarity and concentration. It would increase your energy levels. It would increase your human growth hormone, making it easier for you to build muscle and lean, fitness. It would reduce your blood pressure. It would give you a longer lifespan. It would reduce inflammation. It could do all of those things. If I told you that there was a pill out there like that you could take that would do all of those things and didn't have any side effects, how much do you think that pill would cost? And would you take a pill like that? So I'm guessing that you probably would. And the cost of a pill like that will probably be like $1,000 per pill. Well, I can tell you that that pill, so to speak, does exist. And it doesn't cost us anything. In fact, actually doing it is probably going to result in us actually saving money. Okay, so what is this ancient secret of health? What is this cure-all pill that I'm talking about? It's fasting. Okay, and particularly intermittent fasting is what it is that we're going to be talking about. So like I said, if there was just one health tip that I could incorporate into my life that most people didn't know about, this would be the one, because it can literally change your life. Now, fasting basically means to refrain from eating for a certain period of time, either for health reasons or for spiritual reasons, okay? Now, the most common form of a fast is just not eating anything between your dinner and your breakfast the next day. Okay, so the reason why the first meal of the day is called breakfast, if we break that down, it means break fast. So that's a telltale sign that fasting has been around for a long time. It's literally in the English language, okay? So, obviously, breaking your fast means having the first meal after a period of not eating. So, ideally, it's like you would have dinner, maybe at like 8 o'clock or something like that. And then you wouldn't eat anything after that until the next morning when you eat again at, say, 8 a.m. So that means that you would have gone like a 12-hour period of time where you haven't actually eaten anything. But if you have a midnight snack in the meantime, that's obviously going to be breaking the fast. So I'm not a big proponent of the midnight snack at all, actually. So listen, just talking about fasting in general, it can be broken up into two categories. Okay. There's dry fast and then there's water fast. So dry fasting is where you're not drinking water while you're in a fasted state. So the most common form of a dry fast is, the time that we're recording this is during the month of Ramadan. So most Muslims, they do a dry fast where during the time that the sun is up, they don't drink any water and they don't eat anything until the sun sets. Okay? Now, water fasting is where you're drinking water while you're fasting. Okay, so this is obviously a little bit easier. Now, throughout this podcast, whenever I refer to fasting, intermittent fasting, I'm referring to water fasting. Okay, your dry fasting has its own benefits, all right, but it's harder to implement, and we can discuss that in a future article. But you can get enough out of water fasting that you can gain all of the benefits that I basically mentioned. Now, some people, they like to do prolonged fasts. Okay, those are fasts that are going to last longer than 24 hours. I'm not going to be talking about those fasts either. The reason why is because I kind of consider that more of an advanced type of fasting, right? And this episode is particularly catered towards people that are not advanced fasters, okay? Though prolonged fast can also have tremendous benefits, we're just going to be talking about intermittent fasting, which is fasting for periods of time that are less than 24 hours, okay? Now, what's interesting about this ancient secret that I'm referring to is that it's really no secret at all. Okay, it's practiced by every single major spiritual and religious discipline in the world, including Buddhism, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Taoism, Hinduism. The key to fasting is the understanding that it's not what you eat, but when you eat that matters most. So you can eat exactly the same as you do right now, but structure it so that all of the food that you eat is in a feeding window, and you can still enjoy the benefits of fasting. So let me give you an example. You can either eat 3 meals a day between 6 a.m. and 8 p.m., totaling 3,000 calories, or you can eat 3 meals and 3,000 calories between the hours of 12 p.m. and 8 p.m. and still be benefiting from this life hack. Okay, so when you're eating between 12 p.m. and 8 p.m., you're only eating over an 8-hour window. Whereas if you're eating between 6 a.m. and 8 p.m., then you're eating between a 18-hour window. So you're not going to be getting any of the benefits of fasting. So let me repeat that, okay? Because I think that's a very powerful statement that I just made. Even if you eat the same amount of food that you are currently eating, but do it during certain feeding windows, you can lose weight over that time and be healthier. So lately, this ancient secret has been gaining a lot of attention. And like I said, it's kind of repackaged itself in the form of what's called intermittent fasting in the modern age. And since 2010, the number of Google searches for this topic have increased about 10,000 times. So if intermittent fasting were a stock, it would definitely be a growth stock, and we'd be comparing it to stocks like Amazon, Google, Apple, and tech giants like that, okay? Okay, so we're going to get into why intermittent fasting is becoming so popular right now, right after this short break. All right, so what are the reasons? Why is it that people are getting into fasting again? Why is intermittent fasting becoming so popular? And I think that there's a couple of reasons, but one of the main reasons is that the Western diet, has sort of failed us a little bit, okay? So, there's been many improvements in medical science. We've got better diagnosis, we've got better treatments of illnesses. And so people's life expectancies have been increasing because of that. But the quality of life that people are leading has actually been decreasing. And the number one cause of death in the United States is heart disease, followed by cancer, and then other diseases such as diabetes. So almost all of these conditions can be prevented or reversed by a proper diet. The exception being type 1 diabetics who are actually born with diabetes and certain types of cancer that are hereditary in nature. So the problem is that people that are giving us information about what we should be eating are also the ones that are selling the food to us. So think about it. For decades now, where have we been getting all of our information about food? We've been getting it from television and advertising. The whole idea of eating 3 meals a day was invented by breakfast companies like Kellogg's. These companies, they have very, very deep pockets because the food and beverage industry is a huge industry. Now, these companies can use their resources to lobby governments and administrations to their benefit. So we're told that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Don't ever skip breakfast. That we should be eating several small meals a day instead of fewer larger meals, because that's going to keep our metabolism high, whereas eating a very large meal is going to bog us down. So we've been told that weight loss, has to do with how many calories are going in and how many calories are going out. All right. So the calorie in, calorie out philosophy is what has been so prevalent, in weight loss and sort of dietary control. But let me ask you this. Do you think that 1,000 calories that you're getting from eating chocolate bars is the same value as 1,000 calories from eating broccoli? Obviously not. So see, that's the problem with the whole calories in and calories out argument. Now, there's no doubt that the amount of calories that you eat, are going to have something to do with weight loss or weight gain, but it's not as simple as that. Okay. Meanwhile, in North America, obesity rates are at record highs, along with heart attacks, strokes, and cancers. So therefore, intermittent fasting is becoming recognized as a solution to our society's biggest problems. And people have decided to take their health into their own hands. And if you haven't done so yet, you should consider doing that too. And after this short break, I'm going to get into why is it that intermittent fasting works so well. Okay, so why intermittent fasting just works? So if you're like me, diets are not going to work for you. Okay, for me, it's too hard to shop for different types of food, then learn how to cook that food by following recipes that you get for these diets and stuff. So even if you can do it, the chances are extremely high that you're going to revert back to the way that you eat before. And you're going to regain all that weight and readopt that unhealthy lifestyle. And this is clearly visible on a reality TV show that you guys may have watched by the name of The Biggest Loser, which is a terrible name for a show like this, where people that are basically extremely obese undergo huge transformations by dramatically changing their diet and reducing the amount of calories that they eat, oftentimes to fewer than 500 calories a day. And then they make them exercise like crazy. So these people do lose a ton of weight, but almost all of them gain it right back. Also, when the weight is lost with extreme diets like that, there's a lot of loose skin that's left over. And people sometimes have to undergo certain surgeries to get rid of that loose skin. But that's not the case when you lose weight using intermittent fasting. Diets actually have a very, very low sort of long-term success rate. But the beauty of intermittent fasting is that you don't have to change how you eat. So it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle. So you're not changing how you eat, you're changing when you eat. So you can still eat burgers, hot dogs, pizza, chips, pop, chocolate. I eat all of those things. If people that know me, they know that I eat like a pig when I get an opportunity to. Okay. And I eat all those things. And I mean, I'm not saying that I should be eating them or that you should be eating them, but I am able to eat all those things and I still stay very, very slim. So basically, don't deny yourself, right? So don't deny, instead delay. Okay. So there's no need to learn any new recipes. There's no need to shop differently or buy a juicer. Just do all your eating during a specific window. And the shorter that window is, the better. So you can literally eat like a pig like I do during that feeding window and still get all of these benefits and lose weight. So believe me, I do it. I still say slim and fit. And that's why I think that intermittent fasting is terrific. So now I want to talk about how intermittent fasting can improve our bodies after just this quick break here. All right, so how can intermittent fasting improve our bodies? All right, so intermittent fasting basically puts our body into a type of stress that is extremely healthy for it. So think of it like developing your muscles, okay? The simplest analogy is to think of it like working out, but in a different way. So in order to gain muscle, what do? We put our muscles into a state of stress, okay? We overwork them. It causes tearing in the muscle fibers. And then when we rebuild those muscle fibers, we can rebuild them so that they can grow stronger, okay? Intermittent fasting does the same thing, but at a cellular and at a metabolic level, okay? So the biggest benefit, obviously, to fasting is going to be to our physical health. Once our body enters into a fasted state, usually about 8 to 12 hours into the fast, we have started to deplete our sugar stores or our glucose or glycogen stores in the body. And so that's our primary fuel. You know, most people are constantly fueling themselves with sugar, also known as glucose or glycogen, right? So what people that intermittent fast do is they start training their bodies to stop being fueled on the sugar and to start being fueled on their own fats, okay? So now that the sugar stores are done, the body has no choice but to start burning fat to fuel themselves. And when they start burning fat and fueling themselves, it's a process called ketosis, okay? Now, when ketosis starts happening, there's something called ketones that start to enter our bloodstream, and this is something that starts to nourish our brain and our body. Now, once we're being fueled by ketosis, the insulin levels in our body dramatically decrease. So insulin is a hormone that gets released when we eat food and tells our bodies to start storing this food into fat cells. So nothing has more to do with losing weight or gaining weight than insulin production in our body. So let me try and be more clear about this. Let me rephrase this because this is very important. The more insulin our body produces, the fatter we will get. The less insulin our body produces, the slimmer we will get. It's as simple as that. That's how important insulin is to weight gain and loss. So insulin, you know, it serves a very important function. I mean, it was critical to our survival early on because, you know, early man was a hunter-gatherer and sometimes wouldn't eat for days. So this meant that in order to survive, they needed to store the food that they would eat, you know, in the form of energy in our fat cells. So when we would eat after a prolonged period of time, this insulin would get released and tell our body to store the food we're eating as fat so that we can survive any lean times that may come. Now, in today's society, however, at least in the Western world, we're no longer struggling to find food, right? For the most part, most of us aren't, I hope. So insulin has started to kind of work against us. And it's the primary reason why people are becoming obese. Quite simply, we're eating too often. You know, we're not leaving an adequate amount of time between meals for nature to keep its balance. The food that we're eating, insulin is telling our bodies to turn that food into fat. But before we ever get around to burning that fat, we start eating again. Okay? Now that food comes in and gets stored as fat as well. So we never deplete our glycogen stores, you know, and deplete the sugar inside our body. We keep fueling ourselves on the sugar and then refueling. So that fat just keeps building up and building up and building up. And that's the main reason why people become overweight and obese. Okay? Now, don't get me wrong. Is it possible to eat 6 times a day and still stay slim? Sure, I'm sure it is with enough exercise, maybe. But I've never been able to pull this off. And I have never been able to reach my health goals until I started using intermittent fasting. Now, usually around 12 hours into the fast, the body starts breaking down cholesterol and uric acid in our bodies, and the detoxification process begins. So the main function of fasting is detoxification, actually. So this can improve the function of our arteries and reduce inflammation while also lowering blood pressure. So this is obviously going to have tremendous benefits when it comes to preventing heart disease, okay? Because blood pressure and arteries that are clogged are not very good for the heart. Now, nature has its own way of detoxifying, and this is it. It's built into the system, and we don't got to do some weird cleanse, In the animal kingdom, every mammal instinctively stops eating when it gets sick, except for humans. Now, the body also gets an opportunity to catch up on its digestion. So I want you to imagine this. Imagine that you work as a clerk at a desk, okay? Now your boss keeps giving you work. They give you so much work that you can't handle it, right? What would you do in a situation like that? So you would probably do the work that's the most important first and leave the rest for later. But what if you don't ever get any time to catch up on that work that you left for later? That work is going to keep piling up on your desk. So that's basically what happens in our bodies, in the form of sludge and lining in our intestinal walls. Our digestive system doesn't ever get an opportunity to catch up on all of the extra work that we're doing. And what does it do? It lets, this buildup of sludge and lining in our intestinal walls keep increasing. People that do colon cleanses will often lose about 10 to 12 pounds. And that weight is usually coming from weight that is inside your intestines. So I know it's really gross to think about, but you literally have shit in your intestines if you're not fasting enough or doing these kind of cleanses, like a colon cleanse or something. So that shit inside your intestine, it's like a cesspool, of bacteria and disease. It's said that, the great John Wayne, the Duke himself, had almost 40 pounds worth of intestinal waste in his body when he died. So elimination is a critical function that has been linked to longer life in cells. And so we as an organism are nothing but a super conglomeration, of these cells. And therefore, it's reasonable to assume that if elimination is so important for cells, that it's also critical for us if we want to live longer lives as well. Now, digestion wouldn't be so much of an issue if our diet had more fiber in it. But because of modern farming techniques and the way that food is processed these days, and the advent of fast food and stuff like that, our food, it just is not as nutritious as it used to be, okay? All right, so then what happens in our body? So as we get deeper and deeper into the fast, other things start happening to our body as well. But before we get into that, we're just going to take a short break. Okay, so then after about 12 hours, now this is when the real magic starts happening. I love this part to do with fasting, and it's so beneficial to us. After 12 hours, our body starts to recycle old dead cells and proteins through a process called autophagy, which literally in Latin means self-eating. So I know it kind of sounds gross, but it's not harmful for you, especially when you do it with intermittent fasting. If you did an extremely prolonged fast, maybe like 7 to 10 days or something, it could start to become harmful perhaps. But in 2016, Yoshinori Osumi, a Japanese scientist, won the Nobel Prize for Physiology or Medicine for his discoveries of the mechanisms of autophagy. So autophagy is essentially cellular housekeeping. It basically allows our bodies to recycle old cellular parts and make fresh new cells with it. Autophagy has been connected to many health benefits, including fighting infectious diseases, regulating inflammation, and longer lifespan. So people that consistently put themselves in a state of autophagy effectively are reducing their biological age. Because think about it, the older cells that are weaker and the ones that are no longer functioning, those are being broken down. The body no longer has to supply those cells with nutrients and energy, but those parts are used to make brand new fresh cells. Okay, so you're reducing the biological age of your body. You're literally making yourself younger. So, I don't mean to toot my own horn, but I'm about 40 years old. Okay, I'm 39, I'm turning 40 in October. But if you ask people how old they think I look, they will tell you that I look like I'm around 30. Okay, and that's because I fasted every single day of my life for over 5 years. And believe me, I don't feel like I'm 40 years old either, even though 40 is the new 30. Anyway, all right, so mice that were put on intermittent fasting regimens, regardless of their diet, lived on average 28% longer than other mice. This is based on scientific studies that were done. The longer they fasted, the longer they lived. So fasting has been proven to increase the lifespan of almost every animal that it has been tested on without the restriction of calories. And there's a link to this study. This study was done by the National Health Institute of the United States, which I would consider to be a fairly credible source. So surprisingly, a benefit of intermittent fasting is an increase in human growth hormone. So you see, when man was living in his natural state in the jungle or the savanna, sometimes they'd have to go days without being able to find an adequate meal, especially if they were hunters, okay? Now, during this time, they're burning their fat stores, okay? But they have to maintain their speed and their strength to be able to continue hunting. So when we go into a fasted state, the body actually releases more human growth hormone to tell the body to not burn the muscle, okay? To keep the muscle intact so that we can continue to have the strength that we need to basically catch our prey. So this is going to make it so that the muscle ends up getting preserved because it's going to be needed for survival. Now, human growth hormone has been associated with building lean muscle. It's been associated with bone density and fat loss. So intermittent fasting, when it's done properly, is not going to result in any lean muscle loss. In fact, many people have realized that if they want to get incredibly ripped physiques, then intermittent fasting is the hidden key. Okay, so I haven't been able to get the type of body that I wanted until I started doing intermittent fasting. So I mean, my body is still a work in progress, right? I still work out regularly and stuff like that, but I would never stop intermittent fasting. I love intermittent fasting. And if you don't believe me about how people out there are getting ripped doing this, just go to YouTube and type in "get ripped with OMAD," OMAD. OMAD stands for 1 meal a day. And it's basically an advanced intermittent fasting regimen that people that are very serious about their fitness actually do. So we've talked about the benefits to our body, which are obvious when it comes to intermittent fasting. But now I want to talk about the benefits that our mind and our soul can also get just after the short break. All right, so how intermittent fasting can help our mind and our soul. Okay, so this is the Body, Mind, Soul podcast. So we talked about the body. How can it help our mind and our soul as well? So since the beginning of recorded history, people have been using fasting for more mental clarity and concentration. Okay, so ancient Greek philosophers such as Plato, Socrates, and Aristotle all spoke of how they used fasting to help them concentrate. Okay, the Buddha famously reached enlightenment after a long period of meditation during which he was also fasting. Now, Jesus fasted for 40 days and 40 nights in order to have the fortitude to resist the devil's temptations. The Prophet Muhammad, who's a Muslim prophet, or the chief prophet of the Muslims, encouraged fasting during the month of Ramadan and even fasted during other days of the week throughout the year. And Mahatma Gandhi, is obviously famous for undergoing extremely long fasts as well. Now, the reason why fasting can increase mental clarity is because of this ketosis that we talked about in the earlier segment. So during ketosis, I mentioned that the body stops burning sugar and it starts burning fat. Ketones enter the bloodstream, and the ketones are what start to fuel our brain. So ketones are basically considered the highest quality fuel that our brain can get. Our brain, though it is only 2% of our body's weight, actually uses 20 to 25% of the calories that we take in. So energizing it with high performance fuel is critical. It's like feeding our brains ketones. It would be the same as fueling a Lamborghini with rocket fuel, as opposed to octane 87 gasoline or something. So another reason why fasting can result in more mental clarity and energy is because one of our most taxing bodily functions is the process of digestion. So I don't know about you, but for me, after I eat a big meal, all I want to do is sit or lay down. All the blood from my brain just seems to go right into my stomach and starts to make me really lazy. I realized early on that fasting allowed me to be way more productive, because I would be extremely productive in the morning, and then I would have my first meal around noon, because like I said, I've been fasting for many, many years. The moment I have that first meal, I'm getting super sleepy, and then I wasn't able to basically be as productive in the afternoon as I was in the morning. So I know it sounds counterintuitive, because we've always been told that, okay, you know what, the energy that you get is coming from the food that you're eating, the calories that you're eating. So we think to ourselves, I'm feeling tired, I need to eat some food, right? The truth is, the number one thing that fuels our cells is oxygen, okay? We do need nutrients, we do need water, but oxygen fuels ourselves more than anything else. So if you ever feel fatigued, take a bit of a time out, take 10, 15 deep breaths, see how that energizes you, okay? The truth is, the less you eat, the more energy you're gonna have, because the less energy your body is forced to put into the digestive process, that energy can be put into something else, like thinking or being too active. Obviously, if you don't eat anything at all, you're not going to be getting more energy. So, we're talking about intermittent fasting, not eating for like a month or something. That would probably kill you. All right, fasting also helps one build discipline and teaches patience. Okay, so two attributes that are essential to being successful in almost any endeavor, if you ask me. If you consider yourself to be somebody that lacks willpower, discipline, or self-control, the ultimate remedy to these is intermittent fasting. This is probably the main reason why every single religious or cultural practice has fasting in it, as part of its practice somehow. The mental benefits of fasting are underestimated, but are arguably even more important than the health benefits, which are obviously extensive, which we talked about in the last segment. So, I always considered myself to be somebody who didn't have the most willpower, somebody that was the most disciplined, but doing intermittent fasting for so long, that has sort of brought it to my attention that no, I'm not somebody that lacks willpower. I actually have a lot of discipline. I probably have a lot of discipline because of the intermittent fasting that I've been doing. So, you know what? I've been going on and on about what is intermittent fasting, what are the benefits of intermittent fasting, why you should do intermittent fasting. And so now let's get to the fun part. Let's talk about how is it that we can actually do intermittent fasting right after this break. All right, here we go. So here comes the good stuff. How is it that we can do intermittent fasting? Okay. So for most people that practice this, it's not something that they do occasionally. All right. It's not, oh, you know what? For the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be doing this. It's basically a lifestyle decision. It becomes a way of life, and that's one of the reasons why it's so effective as well. I fast every day of my life without fail. I wouldn't live any other way. I'm telling you. The benefits are so tremendous. The amount of energy that I get, is so tremendous. The way I feel is unbelievable. Usually I'm fasting for a minimum of 18 to 23 hours a day. Okay, so I don't mean to scare anybody, right? If you guys are just starting out, you don't have to do it like this. I've seen the benefits. So I've over time built myself up to a level where I'm fasting this much. But even when I'm on a vacation, so say I'm on a vacation, I want to put my feet up and I want to be a little bit more lenient, let myself get away with a few things. Even when I'm on vacation, I'm still going to be fasting for at least 16 hours a day. Okay, that's a bare minimum for me. It literally becomes a habit. And once it gets to that point, not doing it is actually more difficult than doing it. It just seems odd to not do it for me. So it can be tailored to each person's unique situation. All right. There's many different types of fasts. Okay. They have different names and stuff like that, but I'm not going to get into all of them over here because in the interest of simplifying, I'm just going to present 3 plans. And basically think of them as beginner, intermediate, advanced. So if you've never fasted before in your life, maybe start with the beginner or the intermediate, okay? If you already do a small fast, maybe try the intermediate one out. And if you've been fasting for a while, try the advanced fast out. So what is the beginner fast? So the beginner fast is a 12-hour feeding window with a 12-hour fasting window, okay? So if you've never fasted before and the idea of going long periods of time without food is starting to intimidate you just by hearing me talk about it, have no fear, okay? My mentor, Jim Rohn, he once said that we go the direction we face. So what he means is that the most important thing that you can do is actually take action towards your goals, okay? You don't need to always be trying to hit home runs. You don't need to be hitting your goals immediately. You just need to take action. Confucius said that a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. So the most important thing is to take that action, however small it may be. So you can start to get the benefits of intermittent fasting by making a simple adjustment. Skip your snack after dinner. So just have your last meal by 8 p.m. And then after that, don't do anything except for drink water, okay? Don't have any snack or anything that has calories until the next day when you have your breakfast at, say, 8 a.m. So voila, you just did it. That's a 12-hour fast right there. That's just an example. If you wanted to, you could adjust it. So say you're the type of person that likes to have their breakfast a little bit earlier. You like to have your breakfast at 6 a.m. So then what you do is you'd have your last meal at 6 p.m. and then you'd have breakfast at 6 a.m. So that's the 12-hour window as well. So see what I mean when I say that it can be customizable. So this is a great starting point for people that are just getting into fasting. Now the intermediate fast is where you have an 8-hour feeding window with a 16-hour fasting window. Okay, so this is where you really start to see the benefits of the intermittent fasting. So I honestly recommend starting here. I tell people to do that. People think it's too much. It's just skipping breakfast, or delaying breakfast until noon, basically. So the easiest way to do this is to basically have your last meal no later than 8 p.m. and then skip breakfast, okay? Have your first meal at noon. So you will have done basically a 16-hour fast. It's going to help you lose weight, and you're going to get the benefits of autophagy with this as well. And this is how I got started with fasting. I basically kept this up, for a couple of years, actually, before I advanced to the longer fast. So it's relatively easy to do, and it's really going to help you control your weight and stay healthy. The next fast is the 4-hour the advanced fast, and this is basically a 4-hour feeding window with a 20-hour fasting window. So this is where the real benefits start to come in, if you ask me. You're rapidly going to lose weight when you're doing this fast, and you're going to keep it off. Your energy levels are going to explode because you're not wasting energy digesting food for most of the day. So you can eat before bed and just go to sleep, So while you're sleeping, that's when your body's using its energy to digest. And that's keeping you productive all day. Also, when you're doing a longer fast like this, it's going to allow your human growth hormone levels to spike. And that's going to increase muscle production. So I recommend this fast for active people that are trying to get ripped, lean, and chiseled bodies. And as an added bonus, I'm going to give a more advanced fasting option, which is OMAD, which I alluded to earlier. OMAD stands for 1 meal a day. It's a fasting routine that is a 23-hour fast with a 1-hour feeding window. It's an advanced strategy and is something that I aspire to do every single day. Sometimes I don't get there. Sometimes I just do the 20-hour fast. I believe that it's the most beneficial form of intermittent fasting, but it's not very flexible. So that's why I often fall to the 20 and 4 if I need more flexibility, which is also great. So just to summarize, you know what? Intermittent fasting is not a cure-all, right? It's not a holy grail, but honestly, it comes close. Don't take my word for it. Just try it for yourself. Give it a shot. Give it a shot for about a month. You'll notice that you can easily go without food. You're going to notice that you're going to start to lose weight. In fact, if you're having trouble losing weight or are having health issues, I seriously recommend giving intermittent fasting a try. It is easy to do. It has tremendous advantages, and it can literally change your life like it has mine. So just a quick disclaimer. Listen, I'm not a medical doctor, okay? I'm a person who's experimented on myself and done a lot of research on this subject, right? But if you have any doubts or anything at all, please feel free, consult your doctor. If you've got any serious medical conditions, consult your doctor, by all means. And, if you're very young, under the age of 18, I don't really recommend intermittent fasting for you. If you're pregnant, I also do not recommend intermittent fasting. But I want to thank you guys once again. I hope you guys got something out of this. Like I said, this is something I'm very, very passionate about. Hopefully you can hear that in my voice. And I really do hope that you guys give it a shot. If you do, reach out to me, comment. If you got any questions, leave a message for me. If you got any ideas about future topics that can be on this podcast, leave me a message, and I'd be happy to address them in future podcasts. Thank you guys so much. Stay blessed, everybody. Stay blessed. All right, guys, I want to thank you so much for listening to the Body, Mind, and Soul podcast. Please join us next Tuesday for a new episode. Also, listen, if you were able to get any value out of this at all, please leave us a review, like, subscribe, comment, wherever you hear this podcast, because I'm going to really try and put it out there. Talk to you guys next time.